Hey everybody, welcome back to the 75th episode of Taps and Patience, the podcast that is sometimes weekly. I am AJ with Audacity Micro here with Harrison of Precision Ingenuity. How you doing, Harrison?
I am good and about to be very tired, I feel like. So,
Did you ever watch the Netflix Daredevil?
I watched like the first 3 episodes or something, I think.
I found that music on the YouTube Music app, and it reminded me of that TV show. So, out of homage to Daredevil, I chose that one. But yeah, so why are you tired?
Oh, well, I'm about to be tired. Last week was a pretty big push to get a lot of stuff done by Friday, and we ended up getting it all done, and we got it delivered. And then I was like, oh, Weston was like, there's gonna be another big push this week, and instead of a lot of parts, it's a lot of onesie twosies. It's less total parts, but more variety.
Yeah.
And I thought I had till Friday, and me and Weston were both, because we talked about it last Friday. We're like, all right, we have a week to get the next set of parts done. We're like, okay. And then I saw that it was on the 28th. And so we were talking this day, and like, what day is that due? I was like, the 28th. And Weston looked at the calendar and he goes, that's Thursday, not Friday. So I was like, oh, yeah, that's fun. So got all that due. Have the largest single part order I've ever received. A run of 5,000.
Wow, that is a lot of parts. Lathe?
Yep. Lathe.
Okay, so, good.
5,000 lathe parts, and it's going to take us basically 2 weeks of straight running the lathe to get it done. We've already got the first 1,000-ish done. So, and we kind of got hosed on that too, because the order was placed last Monday, and we were supposed to get material on like Wednesday or Thursday last week. And now it's not going to show up till tomorrow. And so we ordered extra material and got it here on Friday so we could at least get started on it. But we've already about burned through all that material. So, and with this order, historically we bought them, we bought everything because we've done this order before. It's a repeat job, just not this high quantity. In the past, we bought like 10-foot sticks, or we bought a 20-foot stick and had them cut it in half for us. And then we would cut up the 10-foot stick into 3 equal pieces, which is around 40 inches. And for this job, our plan was just to buy it pre-cut, because it was going to be like 270 sticks or something insane.
Okay.
And it was just like, that is a high enough quantity that I am not going to sit in front of a bandsaw and cut those. I'm just going to order it.
That's does not sound fun.
I'm just going to order it pre-cut. And it was like, so it was 200 and I want to say 270 pieces. And it was going to be in the neighborhood of 2,000 to 3,000 pounds of material. And that should be getting delivered tomorrow now.
Okay.
So, but anyway, and then the guy's going to be here on Thursday or Friday to pick up everything that we have, because he was hoping he could pick up the whole order, but we couldn't get material in fast enough, which we got hosed on that because there was a new company, Ryerson. I'm sure you've heard the name. They came in.
I bought lots of stuff from Ryerson.
They came in and sweet talked to us and were like, hey, we're this really big company that can get you stuff that no one else can. And we have the other company that we've been ordering this material through, and we decided to give Ryerson a shot. And they told us they were a little bit cheaper, but they were a day or two longer. But we were like, okay, if it comes in that day, we should be able to still get it done. And then they they missed it, and then they wouldn't have even told us anything until we called, or Weston called, and then it came out that, oh wait, it's not going to be till next Tuesday now. And it's like, okay, you guys completely hosed us. So, yeah, not fun. So, anyways, I got that, got the machine, and then today the spindle and the Tormach is basically died.
Oh no!
So we got another one of those on order too. Because right now we have the lathe running full tilt, the Tormach running full tilt, and the new machine running full tilt.
Gosh.
And it's funny because our stainless steel bin, we emptied it out like a week or two ago, and it's already about 25% full. Because we have this tote. So if you know those Walmart storage totes you can get, the gray ones that you can store stuff in, we use that as our chip catcher underneath the new Haas, and we're filling up about one of those a day.
Okay.
Like completely full. Sometimes 1.5. Just kind of depends on what parts we're running and how much material we're removing. So yeah, it's just a completely different level because the parts that we're getting are now larger, and there's just a lot more material to remove. I had one part that the raw material on it was 13.5 pounds, and when the part was done, it was about 2.5 pounds.
Yeah, that'll fill up a bucket pretty quick.
Yeah. So, and I've had a couple parts like that now. And so it's just how fast can you rip the material off the part, basically. And so with that, there's a lot of experimentation, new machine, how hard can you push it? What makes sense for, what sounds good in the cut and all that fun stuff. So it's a lot of experimentation that we're not wanting to do, but kind of has to be done. So things are really expensive on the new machine right now as we're testing and kind of destroying some new tooling in the process of coming up with reliable recipes. So, which one thing I found out is that I've been using a lot of helical tooling. I'll find a tool that's as close to the one that I got, and I'll look at their speeds and feeds, and they've been amazing. So I've been using their tools because their speeds and feeds, because it's just their calculator is awesome.
Yeah, their calculator is really good.
So that's been giving me a lot of really good recipes that I've been very happy with so far.
Nice.
So, yeah. What about you? What's going on in your world?
Well, the listeners may have noticed that we missed an episode, and that was because I had a job go very poorly.
Uh-oh.
To kind of take a step back and set the stage a little bit more, 2 weeks ago, did we miss 2 episodes in a row, or do we have one in between?
We just missed the one episode, I think.
Okay. Well, at some point we missed an episode because I went on vacation, and then apparently we did an episode. But then we missed last week's. And basically, like right when I got back from vacation, I grabbed a bunch of Xometry jobs. And like I loaded my schedule pretty tight. I did not give myself much margin. I was trying to make up for lost time. Some of those jobs have gone smoothly. Some of them have been pretty cool, pretty easy parts. But I got to one part the other day that I didn't fully pay attention to when I was looking at it on Xometry. And it was just a nightmare. It seems to be like it was made out of Teflon. It was about 1.5 inches long, and it was kind of like a cage that would go around a T shape, if that makes sense.
Okay.
There was another part that I think it was supposed to slide over. There was kind of like kind of like the inverse of a T slot. But I was looking at the drawings, and the parts were never going to slide over each other. So maybe they just happened to be about the same, or maybe they made a dumb design choice. But anyway, this part was just incredibly floppy. The thickest wall was like 1 millimeter, so about 40 thou. And there were many that were like 20 thou, but they would be unsupported and like 1.5 inches long. So holding this thing in any orientation was really difficult because it would just collapse. And I had 2 feet of Teflon bar that was like pretty close to the right size. It's like the size of stock that you'd buy for a job normally. And I ate through that trying to get this thing to work. That was probably like 12 failed parts. And then from a previous job, I had some 2-inch round bar, which was like way oversized for this part. But I had it on hand, so I used it. And I was eventually able to get it to work out of that. But it ended up being like, I made like 20 of these things.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it was a 4 operation part.
So,
And
go ahead.
go on.
Oh, I was just going to ask, was there any way you said 4 op parts, so maybe this wasn't possible, but it's the problem wasn't that you had to finish the thin walls in one operation. It was that you had to finish those thin walls and then flip it and then clamp onto those thin walls.
Yes. So again, imagine the part is kind of like it's like the outline of a T, except in the middle of the part, you like remove the long part of the T. So on the end profile is the T, but if you look at it from the other side, it's like a U shape.
Gotcha.
I don't know if that's going to come across in audio, but anyway, in order to get the right geometry in the hollow part of the T, I had to stand it up on end, so like the 1.5 inch part is sticking straight up, and it had a 1/32 inch radius. No, yeah, 1/32 inch radius in those corners. So I had to use a like 3/4 inch long 1/16 inch end mill to. I would go halfway down and then flip it and then go halfway from the other side to get like the inside of that T, the inside of the outline, and then I would flip it and like machine off the top half and then flip it over again and machine off the bottom half. Or I should say, after I did the ends, I laid it down and then machined off the top half, flipped it, machined off the bottom half. Figuring out that order of operations took me a couple tries, and I learned that I could fill it full of wax while after the second operation, and that helped a lot. That was the key. It would not have been possible without filling it full of wax. But then even after that, it took me like 3 different tries to get it in spec. One second, pause. Anyway, eventually I was able to get it nailed down. Fortunately, the Xometry plastic parts have by default a plus or minus 10 thou tolerance. And I think I used at least 8 thou of that. But hey, in spec is in spec. If they wanted a tighter tolerance, they could have, paid more for it. So, but that part, I expected that to take me like 4 hours, and it literally took me. I think I said 4 days earlier, but I think it was more than that. I think it took me like 6 days of work.
Seriously?
Yeah, it took me forever. It killed all semblance of any sort of schedule that I had. I have never ever been so frustrated at anything in my entire career.
So
Like,
did
not
you?
an exaggeration.
So what about all the other jobs you took? Because you said you didn't leave yourself much time in the schedule. Did you like blow past like 100 due dates?
So the rest of the jobs that week were pretty easy, and I got them done before this one. This was the last. Oh, no, that's not true. There was one after this one, and that one I just shipped today, which was 4 days late.
Okay.
I think it was supposed to ship Friday, and I shipped it today. Maybe it was supposed to ship Thursday, and I shipped it today. So basically I ended up with 2 jobs that were late because of that, which is kind of a bummer. It only hurt my score by 1 point though, so whatever. So now that has snowballed, and I have I can check my Xometry here. I don't have it up right now. I have like 4 jobs due before the end of the week. One, there are 40 small titanium parts. They really should be a lathe part, but I'm going to do them on my mill. The tooling for that should come in tomorrow, and I can get started. I already have the materials. Right now, those are looking like, right now, Fusion says 12 minutes for a completed part. So 2 ops, 12 minutes. I think I can probably get that down to, at least 8 minutes once I start to play with speeds and feeds a little bit. So that should be fairly doable. Then I have 4 parts that are, they're coming out of A36 steel, which I kind of hate to machine. It's kind of stringy and gummy. Those have a fair amount of material removal for what I do. Because they have like a kind of a tall post sticking up out of them. It's like a half-inch thick plate, and then it's got like a half-inch or 3/4 inch tall little post sticking out of it. And so I'm making it out of 1.5 inch bar stock, and so it's just going to be, my poor little mill does not like removing material, and so it's just going to sit away and chomp at those for like an hour and a half. Then there's like some little tiny tooling in those. I'm going to have to use a long reach 1/32 inch end mill, which is why I took these parts, is the micro machining on them. I don't see that being too bad. As long as I don't break too many tools, it should be fine. There's nothing crazy. It's just a straight pocket with some funky contours on it. So as long as my machine can remove the material in time, it'll be fine. And then I have one more part after that is basically just a piece of aluminum flat stock, except it has some really subtle like sloping to it that needs to be surfaced in. That one should be cake. That'll just be, whipping around at like 150 inches per minute with a ball mill.
Yeah.
So as long as I can get all that stuff done before the end of the week, I'll be fine.
Yeah, that doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah, I'm probably going to have some late nights over the next week. I'm probably going to stay up late tonight. I think if I can get at least 2 of the big steel parts roughed out today, that'll help me get on schedule.
Yeah. I need to try to be done with all my stainless parts tomorrow, if possible. I don't think it is possible, but I need to at least attempt.
Mm-hmm.
So, because my plan was to run some of the aluminum parts on the Tormach, which I still might attempt, depending on which parts they are, and their tolerances. But with the bearings in the spindle sound like they're about to implode. It's a really round clanking sound.
Clanking is never good with a spindle.
No. It sounds like the bearing balls are rubbing against each other, and kind of like bouncing around on the inside. So, yeah.
Have you done basic troubleshooting to make sure it's like not the motor or the drawbar being loose?
Not yet, but it happened pretty all of a sudden.
Okay.
Which I don't know if that is a sign or isn't a sign that it's the bearings, but the bearings have been going out for a while now, so I'm 99% sure that's what it is. I could pop the belt loose and just wiggle it, and it'd probably show it, but it wouldn't surprise me if that's what it is.
Yeah. It kind of sounds like the spindle that I had, where Tormach didn't tighten down the bearing preload nut.
This is the one we rebuilt, and it's been running for over a year. Did you tighten
down the bearing? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I know, but that still could have like popped loose or something. I don't know. I don't know. I
guess it could have, but I've known the bearings were going out on this because they weren't a sealed bearing, and so it's lasted about as long as it will. And like there's been a lot of other signs other than this that it's been going out. So I've known it was going to happen. And at this point, we're just going to buy a new spindle cartridge, and we might try to rebuild this spindle just to have on hand, but we'll see. So it's the Tormach is actually, especially when we get this busy, it's a lot more useful than just not having it.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, this is a week where I'm missing the Tormach because it would have been fantastic for roughing out the steel parts.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yep.
I helped my old boss move out the Tormach that they bought when I was there.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who bought that machine, man, he got a deal. He bought it for for $25, he got the Tormach and a plasma cutter.
Oh my!
I'm the only one that ran that 1100, and it maybe had 3 hours on it.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh my!
a fantastic deal for that guy. But I found out that the company I used to work for went out of business, or they were going out of
Really?
business. Yeah. They had laid off basically everyone down to just kind of like the core group of people.
Mm-hmm.
It was like my boss, the secretary slash bookkeeper, which also happened to be his sister. And I think they had one guy. I don't remember if it was the guy in charge of assembly or the shop foreman. But basically, they were stripping down the place. They were bringing
Really?
parts out to the dumpster and selling off equipment. And yeah,
Hmm. That's sad.
yeah, that has always been my backup plan. It's always like, I know I can just walk back in there and get a job anytime I want if something
Mm.
goes wrong with this. And it's like, well, okay, now this kind of has to work.
Yeah. No backup plan now. Now,
Yeah. I mean,
was that something that you like saw while you were there, or is like do you have any idea as to what caused the downfall?
they, I mean, we can get into several levels of deepness here. At the basic level, they just weren't getting enough business to, keep the lights on anymore. If you want to start working your way backwards from that, why weren't they getting business? Well, I think their things were too expensive, their lead times were too slow, and they just weren't developing new products. I know I was the last person to design a new product there. And it, I mean, it did pretty well in the market. It even got copied by a couple other companies. But like, I don't know, there's a lot of shops that are like that shop that are going out of business right now. Kind of
Mm-hmm.
older, dirtier shops, lots of dust, lots of mess, tools and stuff packed everywhere. They had, and I'm sure they're regretting this now, they had literally, I would say, oh gosh, how do I even have to estimate this? Maybe by shipping container. So if you were to take a shipping container and you were to take their inventory and start filling up the shipping container, you could
Mm-hmm.
probably have filled 4 or 5 shipping containers full of old inventory.
Oh, really?
Not exaggerating at all.
Oh,
I
wow.
would say 90% of their shop floor was inventory. And I always bugged my boss about getting rid of that. Yeah,
Really?
90% of the shop floor was inventory.
Why? Just because their lead times were so long?
So they had many, 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 many product variations and like
Okay.
thousands or tens of thousands of combinations. And, it was not a lean shop. So when somebody ordered 5 of, part 1, 2, 3, 4, they would make an entire sheet of them on the laser and stick those in a box somewhere for the next time that somebody orders 5 of those. Except when you ended up with that much inventory, you never knew where the box that had the parts for item number 1, 2, 3, 4 were. And so you'd make 5 more and put them in a new box. Or maybe you'd get lucky. Or maybe you would spend 2 hours looking for the ones that you knew you made last week.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, I talked to my boss for a long time when I worked there. Basically, from day one, I was like, you've got to fix this. And there were kind of systemic problems of like, there were just so many part numbers. Half of the parts, they didn't even name parts. They named assemblies. At least the previous engineer did. I anything new I designed had a part number, but the old engineer only named assemblies. So
Oh,
you might
man.
have an assembly of 10 parts, and those 10 parts just didn't have a name. And then they would reuse some of those parts on different assemblies. So, the part number would be like, go get that doodad from E123. And like I tried to like get it cataloged and like build some sort of inventory system, but it literally would have been like a full-time job for probably like 5 years. Like no
Oh, my
exaggeration.
goodness.
And I don't know, I think they kind of hit the spiral of like it was slowing them down, and so their prices were more expensive and they couldn't keep up, and also they couldn't hire anybody new because nobody wanted to work there.
The death
And
spirals.
it, yeah, and you know I don't know if you ever look at auctions, but this is how there are so many companies going out of business, so many shops going out of business right now that are exactly the same.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's a big shop that went down. Of course, the owner passed away. That's why that one went down. But I got to walk through that shop, and I mean, their newest machine was from 2010, and they had fluorescent lights that were just. I mean, it was it was the iconic dungeon CNC shop where like you go in
Yeah.
there and everything's poorly lit, the floor's nasty, nothing's organized, there's parts all over the place. I mean, and that's just like you said, that's how a lot of shops are right now that are closing down. So, which is great opportunity for young guys like us coming in, if you can find the work. So it's
Yeah.
out there.
I thought you meant the stuff at the auction at the shop, and I was like, no, 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 don't buy that.
No, 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 not that. the the void that gets left by those companies.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
because
we
there
just
is.
had. Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry. I was say we just had a big tool and die shop in Muncie closed down, and it's like I probably need to be calling companies
Mm-hmm.
because I'm sure they
Yeah.
had business somewhere.
Yep. Yeah, I know. I know. My goal was to go out and find some more business, but we've gotten so swamped that I don't have time to do that, which is a good problem to have. But I also want to find some more customers, so it's catch-22. So we'll see.
So I have
But
a kind of on that note. I have a idea to float past you.
all right, what you got?
So lately with Xometry, obviously this month is I did a little bit less in revenue because I took a week off, um, and then failed it apart for another week. But I am getting close to hitting my revenue goal of $8,000 a month. I
Mm-hmm.
think I hit it in February, and I've been close. I don't know, a couple times. So basically, I think like next month hitting my revenue goal won't be a problem. I
Mm-hmm.
think I'm close to that. I and that number is a comfortable number for me to live on. Is comfortably paying expenses and stuff. I'm not sure I should try to grow that number for the rest of the year, even though I probably could. I think I should hit that 8,000, and instead of taking on more work to try to push that number up, I need to spend time to kind of really get my ducks in a row in the shop. I need to build out systems. I need to do a little bit more cleaning and organization. That's something else I did this week while I was running that other part.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I still don't have a good library speeds and feeds, for example. And I basically just eyeball it every time. And I'm pretty good at just eyeballing numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder how many tools I break that could be avoided just because I haven't like gone through and done some more systematic testing and mapping out of speeds and feeds, or how much cycle time I'm leaving on the table.
Yeah. Yeah. I would definitely say my perspective on that is I really like where your head's at in that space. Whenever we've been slow, I always try to focus on improving the shop. And when you get really busy and you stay really busy, you are on the path to becoming those shops that we just talked about that get really bad.
Yeah. And
And
I
so,
don't want to do that.
yeah. Plus, in your situation, if you're not trying to grow into a massive shop and you're reaching your financial goals, then what that can allow you to do is as you optimize, maybe you have one day a month where you've hit your goal and so you can take that one day to improve the shop. And then next month you have a day and a half or 2 days.
Mhm.
And that efficiency grows and now you'll get to a point where you can make more money in less time, and that'll either give you more free time with your family, or when you do decide to take on more work, hey, I more than have the capacity for it. I can take on that kind of work. Or if surge work comes in and you can charge a premium for your time, you're like, well, I already know that I have X amount of time every week or month of excess capacity. because I've been building towards that. So I really like the idea of where you're going with that direction. It's something that honestly I would like to do too. I've thought about that because we're kind of a mess in the new shop right now. It's a construction zone. We got people coming in and out. It is just it's awesome, but it's also kind of a nightmare. And it's going to be that way for probably 6 months or so.
Yep.
And on the like I have all these grand plans of things I want to do, but there's so many other things I got to get my ducks in a row before I can start doing these different things. But right now, cash flow is our big problem. And once I get my cash flow back up, then I can start focusing in on kind of the stuff that you've been talking about. And I think that if you're to that point where you're hitting your cash flow goal, that focusing internal is a great idea.
Yep. I think that's what I need to be focusing on. Because right now, like, another thing that does is it pushes back when I would buy a new machine.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, I could make more money with a new machine, but also that would, I mean, the Haas is so cheap, that would probably quadruple my overhead. Like, yeah, because the Haas payment is only like $400 a month. And I don't think anything I'm going to buy next is going to be less than $1,200 a month. Yeah. So while my overhead is low, I think I need to capitalize on that and get really efficient with what I have. And then I can push into, the Kern or whatever's next.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I highly recommend 5-axis.
Yeah. The question is 5-axis or potentially a lathe next.
Yeah, that's a tough question.
Yeah. The parts I'm about to run are 100% lathe parts. And like I am even knurling them with a thread mill just to do them on my mill. But it would be easy with a lathe.
Yeah. I'm definitely learning the value of wanting to go to a 0-point system on a lot of our stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I am ready to go to a 0-point system on everything, just because setup time is insane. And if we're going to become a more efficient shop, we need to get that taken care of. And tool holders. I need so many tool holders.
Yeah. I bet. Do you have enough to fill your ATC at the moment?
Not even. I got it about 2/3 full.
So. I'm now good on tool holders, but I need more collets. Because I would say 95% of the collets I use are 1/8 inch, but like 95% of my collets are not 1/8 inch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I run into the same problem, and me and Weston go back and forth because we can buy, the ER collet system is a pretty cheap system to buy. It's not that expensive to throw a tool holder on, and we've been buying a couple here and there, but we've been purposely not buying many because our goal is to go into the RegoFix system.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want to buy a whole bunch of tool holders that I'm not going to end up using. I will need some, because you're always going to need ER collets for different things. Like, you're never going to get away from it. Drills, taps, chamfers. I mean, there's things that you don't need a RegoFix holder for. It'd be nice if you could have everything in a RegoFix holder, but or just a nicer quality holder in general. But the goal is to avoid buying too many, avoid going crazy with ER collet holders, and try to get into the RegoFix system as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm.
The power grip specifically.
Yes.
So, but because that's our goal right now. And the one nice thing about running this machine though now is that I figured out that a 4-inch gauge length tool holder is about the perfect 5-axis size for my machine. Okay. I can get by with a 2-inch gauge length on some tools. 4 inches is about perfect, and 6 inch is way too long. At least with the parts I've been running. So.
Okay.
For the bigger tools, the larger diameter tools, going to a 2.5 inch gauge length is fine. for anything between 3/8 and smaller, going to a 4-inch gauge length is about perfect. I can reach
Yeah.
everything with that. So, but
So
learning. Go ahead.
I was just going to do a sneaky topic change.
Go for it.
So one of the pockets on my machine is now permanently full.
One of the pockets?
Yeah, on the ATC tool.
Oh, really? You
Yeah.
have a permanent tool that you'll never take out?
Yeah.
Oh, really? What's that?
I have a new to me Renishaw probe.
You got one?
It showed up today. Literally probably an hour before we started the podcast.
Oh
I
my
got
goodness.
the run out dialed in and started the calibration when something is funky happening with the macros that I haven't had a chance to dive into. But
Okay.
I finally have a Renishaw probe.
So you just have to put in batteries in it and it automatically communicates. There's no like pairing or anything, right?
Yes, it seems to be communicating. When I go to do the calibration routine, it's giving me an error that's like illegal value or something. So I
Oh,
think it's trying to write to some variable that it shouldn't be writing to, because I think it is trying to use the new Renishaw probing macros on my
not to look.
older machine. I think that's what's happening, but I haven't had a chance to dig in yet.
That would make sense. Now, did you have to clear out all your macros before you did that? Because did it have a probe on it at one point? Because one thing when you're setting those up is that you do have to clear out. You have to clear out your like all of your previous macros settings for a probe when you're setting it up for the first time.
No, I haven't done that.
Because like it'll fill in values whenever you're setting it up, and if it already has values in it, it'll error out.
Okay, well, now we know what I need to go do. No, I didn't clear out anything. I just stuck the thing in there and hit calibrate.
Okay. Well, I say that. That's something that I read on the troubleshooting manual when I was looking at our probe.
Okay, well, I'll try that.
So, but yeah. Well, that's awesome. That is exciting. I I don't know what the value will be on yours. Did you know that you can have, and I don't know if works on the older controller. I'm assuming it does. But you know, whenever you're on the main screen and you're running a program and it's got that little window with like the counter of like how many times you've run
Mhm.
an M30 cycle and whatnot. There's a way on the newer controllers, and I hope the older controllers can do it too, where you can assign 2 macro variables to that little window so you can see it at all times.
I don't know. I'd have to go
Well,
check.
if you are able to do that, macro variable number, I think it's 188. If I'm it's either 188 or 118 is the last recorded value that your probe records.
Okay.
So it could be your diameter, it could be a length. It's just it could be the last tool height that you measured, but it stores it in that one macro variable, and so I found that I can put that on the front, and whenever I'm probing something, that's the one thing I liked about the Tormach that I was unable to do on the Haas was what was my value that I just recorded?
Yeah.
Like, where is that? Well, you can find that it's like I said, it's either 188 or 118, and you can assign it to that little front window, and so you can always see what the most recent value was.
That's nice.
And so I've assigned that to the front, and then whenever I'm probing something in, I'll look at it and I'll go, okay, that looks right, or whatever. And I just found out today that when you do tool breakage detection, it'll show you the difference between what the tool was before and after it did the breakage detection. And that's where I found out that my machine doesn't repeat in Z as much as well as I'd like it to.
Oh, really? How far is
Mm-mm.
it off?
The furthest off I've seen it is 1.2 thou.
Okay. Is that just thermal though?
I don't know. That's what I got to watch.
That sounds like thermal to me.
But
On a
I
big
know,
VF3, yeah. Oh, 1.2 thou is nothing for thermal growth.
but on the 5 axis, it's a lot whenever you're flipping things around. And so having the dual contact or an HSK for 5-axis, I don't it makes a lot more sense as I'm doing this, because it can really mess things up on the 5-axis if I'm not repeating as accurately as I'd like to be in C.
I don't remember if you saw this message, if it was to me or where it went to, but Serven Solutions is like, watch out for thermal growth on that thing. Because that's something I believe they fought for a while. And whenever they've talked about accuracy on their 5-axis, it's always been about thermal growth. So I think that's what it is.
Yeah, yeah. So, anyways, that could be it. But I also think some of that is because even like I've seen it go up to 1.2 thou and then drop down to like 0.2 thou. So I don't, or 2/10 or 3/10 or something. So I don't think it's all thermal. I think thermal is a component of it, but I don't think it's the. I think just the tool holder in general just doesn't repeat as well, just because of it. It's a Cat 40.
I don't know.
So
That doesn't sound right to me. It should be better than that. You should be within tenths.
yeah, maybe, I don't know. I'll have to watch it and see what and keep track of it.
Is it a like chip on the taper kind of problem?
I don't believe so. I've been cleaning out my taper.
Huh. That is a big problem that I've been having lately, especially when I was doing the plastic parts, is the stuff would get splashed up into the ATC and then land on the taper.
Well, the good news for me is mine's a side mount and it's way up out of the
Okay.
way and it's got that
That's
cover.
nice.
So it's pretty hard for chips to get up into a tool holder without,
Okay.
unless the tool's out and you're blowing chips around, which you never should do.
Yeah. Or it like falls off while it's riding the little arm into the spindle, like it
Yeah,
drips onto it. Yeah.
that's about the only 2 times that things could really get up in there.
Okay, that's good at least.
So, but my machine does pop really bad whenever it's doing a tool change.
Oh,
And and
it's not supposed to do that.
no, it's not. And I talked to the Haas tech or he told us when we got it that we need to pull all the tool holders out, wipe them down, and add a little bit of like a light oil once a week as a general maintenance. And I did that once so far, and it made a big difference. And now it's starting to pop really bad again, so I probably need to do it again.
Have you greased your pull stud? Or the
Yes.
drawbar, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Which you do by greasing the pull stud and yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did that whenever I cleaned on all of my tools. So
Okay.
it's probably just time to pull all the tools out and re-grease them. The problem is that whenever you're running through spindle coolant, it blows out all of your oils and greases and whatnot.
Mm.
And so they said that if you're running a lot of through spindle coolant, which we have been, it basically pressure washes the inside. Like, not pressure washes, but anytime you do a tool change and there's still pressure, it'll blow down the taper and blow everything out when it's releasing that tool. And that blows all the grease and everything off of it too.
Is your coolant filtered? Like,
yes.
Is there is there the possibility of getting fines in that coolant?
There is. It's not as filtered as I'd like it to be. I had a drill that I was running, and I had run some plastic, and I had a drill that had, it was like a 1/16 or smaller drill, but it had through spindle coolant, and these holes were tiny. I didn't think it had through spindle coolant. Like, it was a through spindle coolant tool, but usually when they get that small, I've seen them where they have jets that come out at the top of the drill because they don't run all the way through the shank. But this one had them all the way to the end, and I was just like, oh my goodness. And I went to run it, and there was like no coolant coming out of the nozzle, and I was like, what? So I tore the tool apart, and sure enough, there was 2 tiny, tiny plastic chips that had worked its way in and plugged the holes.
Huh.
And that tool was so small and it was the only one I had. So, of course, when I went to take it apart, my tool slipped and snapped off the drill bit, and I had to
Oh
go
no.
back to the a different tool.
I just earlier today I broke 10 drill bits in one fell swoop.
Oh no.
So this last part I did had zero point 0.2 millimeter holes in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought a box of the PCB drills for it, just like the cheap ones off Amazon. And 0.2 millimeters is awfully small. The way those boxes work is they're like a clamshell, and then in the middle of the clamshell is like a tongue that the drill bits sit in. It's like this removable plastic, like little cartridge. And when you close the box, the cartridge, like it closes around this cartridge. The
Mm-hmm.
cartridge wasn't seated all the way down, and so all 10 drill bits were sticking up a little bit. And when I went to
Oh
close
no.
it, the lid knocked the head off of all 10 drill bits.
Oh no.
Fortunately, I had two boxes, but it's like, well, there goes those. They're also not that expensive, but
Yeah, PCB drills aren't
it's
that
like this
bad.
could have been really bad had I been, if this had
Oh
been
my
timed
goodness.
differently or if I had bought less of them.
I will say this though. Thinking of coolant and my tooling, I was running a part that had a three three quarter inch deep slot that was a quarter-inch wide,
Mm-hmm.
and I was going in with just a little over a quarter-inch. So I pre-drilled one of the holes, and then I went in with a quarter-inch tool and was like slotting it out. It got deep enough to where my coolant couldn't get down to it, and I snapped
Mm,
like three tools off.
yeah.
I had so the part had like 4 or 5 slots that were at like a really shallow depth, and it had one really deep one. It did all the shallow depth ones first, and then I started breaking off tools repeatedly in the deep pocket. It wasn't a through spindle coolant tool, but I could put through spindle coolant through the ER collet nut down into the tool. And so I turned that on for that tool path, and the tool survived, and
Oh,
it
nice.
ran perfectly after that. So I thought that was kind of cool. That like I could actively see when the coolant got to the point where it couldn't splash it,
Uh-huh.
and it just started shearing tools left and right. Like I went through like three tools just like one after another, and I was like, okay, what is going on?
On the coolant train of thought, when I was working on the fidget cubes for Scott for Design the Everything, on some of them I noticed that I was getting like a weird surface finish. It looked like it was galling or like tearing the material instead of cutting it. And like I
Mm-hmm.
tried changing tool and I tried changing to a new sharp tool and that didn't help. And eventually I was just like, whatever. I'm gonna um, put the ones that are bad into walnut shells and polish them up. But later that day, I checked my coolant concentration, and the coolant concentration was at like 5%. And I topped that off to, I think I ended up at like 12%. I put a little bit too much in. And that problem completely went away as I ran the rest of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was really weird. I have never actually noticed the effects of coolant concentration up until this, but I think it was because I was running at such a high RPM surfacing the aluminum that
Mm-hmm.
it actually mattered. It was like, oh, hey, look, coolant concentration does matter. These things are
Mm-hmm.
important.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Coolant. That's another thing that I've been trying to go through. I went from Blazer or the Blazer. What was it? Do you remember what coolant I was using from Blazer?
No,
It was,
I always made fun of you for it, but
yeah. Forget which one it was, but I had that one for a while, and then I switched over to this. Someone recommended that I try the Hangstafers. It's
mm-hmm.
like an S1001 or S1001 something. Anyways, we've been using that, and it's kind of blue. It's kind of a weird color, but it's been working really good, except for its foams. It's been foaming like
Oh,
crazy,
yeah.
and so that's my biggest problem I've been fighting with it. The surface, the shine of the parts, the aluminum and the stainless, is much brighter than it was with our
Hmm.
old coolant, but it just foams like crazy, and so I've been trying to deal with that.
Are you
Because
still
if
using tap water?
yes,
You may need the RO water.
Maybe. Although I did a check with like one of those strips, and it was a really
Hmm.
good quality water, but it was
Okay,
high in sulfur.
good for you. Yeah.
That's the biggest thing, and maybe that's what's causing it. But I do want to put RO water, and maybe that'll make all the difference in the world. So we'll see.
Yeah, our little RO system has worked pretty well. I did have to make a change to it where we were so the way our system is set up, we do not have like any sort of drain in our shop. Like we have water supply, but there
Hmm.
is no septic tank, there is no sewer. Like you got to sort out what to do with the water yourself. And RO systems, they make a large percentage of wastewater. It's like
Oh.
I don't know. I don't remember the ratios, but it's like 10 to 1 or 3 to 1 or something, where for every gallon of good water you make 3 gallons of bad water. And
Gotcha.
by bad water, I mean it's got some concentrated minerals in it. So we have a waste tank that we filled up. And the original idea was we would use that wastewater to water my wife's plants. But we have since then found out that the water, for some reason, is actually softened out here. And when you concentrate down the softener salt or whatever in that water, it kills plants. So
Oh.
that plan went out the window. I still use it for like some cleaning and stuff. Like if I just need to like bring a floor mat outside or whatever and spray it off, I can use that water. But what I've ended up doing is I have a this is very Rube Goldberg. So I have a sink. My sink drains down to a 5 gallon bucket. That 5 gallon bucket has a pump in it that then pumps the contents of that bucket outside. And obviously, we don't put anything bad in that sink, just hand washing water or parts cleaning water. And so I now have a pump that moves the wastewater from the waste RO wastewater tank into that 5 gallon bucket, and then the 5 gallon bucket gets pumped outside. And I have a like an if this then that routine set up, and those pumps on a smart switch. And so every hour it turns on the pumps for a minute,
Oh my goodness.
and that seems to work.
Hmm. How much RO water do you produce in like a 24-hour period?
So we have a really small filter. It's like is it like 90 gallons per day or something like that? I think it might be less than that. But I think it's a 40-gallon tank, which is more than enough for the Haas. Honestly, most of the water at this point is going to my wife's plants. She just started taking my good RO water to water her plants
Does it have the inverse
because
effect? It like makes them grow better.
yes, well because the way our house is plumbed, there's no way to get non-softened water.
Oh, okay.
Everything is softened. Hoses are softened. The shop's softened. Like if you want unsoftened water, you have to temporarily bypass the water softener or steal it from my RO system. So
Gotcha. I need to look up cheap RO systems and try some out.
if you don't need anything fancy like mine, like I have a holding tank for RO water, I have a holding tank for wastewater. Both of those have float switches in them that are connected to a solenoid. So if there's room in both tanks, they're wired in series so that if both tanks have room for more water, then it turns on a solenoid and starts filling up the water. And if either tank fills up, it turns off the fill system. But if you don't need that, like, and you have a drain, I don't know, mine was like $60 or something. It probably wouldn't
Yeah, I
be
might have
enough for
to.
your shop, but for my little Haas, it's perfect.
Well, we don't go through. I mean, 90 gallons a day is that's enough to fill up both our hosses because one's a 55 and the other's a 35. So that'd be right about perfect if you were
You'd need a
filling them up.
holding tank.
Yeah, but that's if you're filling them up, 100% every day, and I'm not burning through that much.
Yeah. But yeah, you need a holding tank. I can send you the link to mine. It's small. It is not a DI system. It is just RO. Uh, Let me make sure I'm not lying about the. I'll put the link in the YouTube and podcast description. Okay. Oh, yeah. Mine was $60, and it is 50 gallons per day.
Yeah, that'd be plenty.
So 3-stage. Yeah. Yeah. Just put a float switch in a tank, and just have it fill up the tank. Put a pump in the bottom of the tank, and be able to pump into a machine. I'm
Because
perfectly happy with it.
I think I top off once every 2 to 3 days. I'll add maybe 20 gallons total to all the machines.
Oh, okay. That's not bad at all. I feel like I go through a lot more than that.
So at least that's what it's been so far. Honestly, I don't know how much Weston's been adding to the lathe because he's been running that a lot recently. So that's mainly the new Haas. It's about 20 gallons every 3 days, 2 days.
I think I get a lot of evaporation on my Haas because I run it at 30k RPM, and it just atomizes it.
Yeah, I'd like to get a mist collection system for this machine at some point.
Speaking of mist collection systems, we have a new Patreon.
Oh, we do?
Yeah, he has nothing to do with the mist collection systems.
Oh, okay.
But
I was wondering
that was a great transition.
Speaking of new mist collection systems, we have a new Patreon.
Yeah. So we have a Mr. Jeb who has joined the Buck a Show podcast, or he has joined the Buck a Show tier supporting the podcast. I apologize for this month where it became the $2 a show tier because we did half as many episodes, but we'll get back to that. And then, of course, we have our $10 a month Patreons who get a shout out every episode. We have EJ from Nocturnal I'm tired and I can't speak anymore. We have EJ from Nocturnal Welding. We have Simon. We have Jake Brownson. And, of course, Chris at Thought Bomb Design. So thank you, Patreons. We really appreciate you. Our Patreons get access to our Patreon Discord, which I don't think has had a single message sent in it. So we need more people so we can talk in there. And I'm doing a great sales pitch right now. If you join at the $10 or up tier, you can get a shout out on every episode. We have a couple tiers beyond that we don't expect anybody to ever sign up for, but they're there if you want extra perks. Or you can just join at the Buck a Show. And all of our Patreons get access to all of our episodes early. And as a bonus, you get early access to all of the Audacity micro videos early because I don't have my own Patreon. And all money from our Patreon is going to go to getting us to IMTS, where we are going to host a meetup at the Pocket NC booth with or without their permission. They still haven't answered me.
I like it.
I guess while I'm in administrative details mode, we both have YouTube videos and a podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, feel free to subscribe to the podcast in any podcast player. If you are listening to us as a podcast, you can see our glowing little faces on YouTube on the Audacity Micro YouTube channel. I was going to say link in the description, but I never do that. I should probably start doing that. I think that is all administrated. Oh, if you have a small business and you would like a shout out on the episode, shoot me or Harrison a message and we will give you a free shout out on the podcast. All ships rise with the tide. All right,
speaking of listeners, I've had a couple reach out to me recently, and I've actually called and talked to a couple of them, and it's been pretty cool connecting with a couple different guys in the area. There's a couple guys that I've talked to that have Haas's with trunnions, and it's been pretty cool to kind of talk to them about their experiences so far. So pretty cool stuff. Those of you who I've talked to, I appreciate the conversations we've had thus far. It's been awesome to kind of meet and connect with people. So,
and our Patreons are our favorite listeners.
They are.
Just in case anyone wondered if we played favorites. Yes.
We have favorites, although we still owe them a reward.
Oh yeah, so we're working on those coins. I asked my brother to work on the artwork, and then he, I think, promptly got distracted. So I may need to have Scott do it.
Yeah. Go thump someone on the head, because I'm ready to send out those coins.
Okay.
I just need the
Except
artwork.
for the fact that we haven't designed them or made them yet.
Well, I have them made. I just need to laser them.
Yeah. So if you would like a coin, join our Patreon. And at some point in the future, we will send everybody a coin.
So I think that's about it that I have. I am just swamped this week, and it's been compressed.
Yes.
So
same.
But that's it.
We can listen to the Daredevil theme on our way out.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. All right, guys, we've reached that time in the podcast where we get to say goodbye, and we'll see you guys next time. For those of you that hung on to the end, we appreciate it. We're both probably a little bit tired and loopy. Seems how we always seem to do this late in the evening after we both have had a really long day. But we appreciate you guys hanging out with us, and this is Harrison with Precision Ingenuity signing out with AJ from Audacity Micro.
If any of you guys ever want to record the awkward outro goodbye, that's actually a Patreon tier, by the way.